Here's the thing, nobody tells you about breaking a fast. The meal everyone obsesses over, that carefully chosen, lovingly prepared first bite after hours or days of nothing, might not actually be the one calling the shots. What if the meal that truly determines how you feel, how hungry you get, and how your blood sugar behaves is the one that comes after it? Yeah, your second meal might be running the whole show, and most people don't even see it coming. But to understand why, we need to back up and look at what's happening when that first meal hits. After fasting, your body isn't just sitting there twiddling its thumbs. It's been busy. Fat burning is up, insulin levels have dropped to the floor, and your cells have basically gone into this efficient, resourceful survival mode. Think of it like your body switched from a gas-guzzling SUV to a sleek little hybrid. Then you eat. And the moment food arrives, it's like someone just pulled a giant lever. Boom. The whole system flips. Insulin starts climbing. Digestive enzymes flood in. Your gut wakes up and starts processing like it's got something to prove. The switch from fasting state to fed state is one of the most dramatic biological transitions your body makes, and it happens fast. Here's the wild part, though. In those first moments after breaking a fast, your body is genuinely forgiving. Like, surprisingly so. Because your cells are so insulin sensitive after being in a fasted state, they're practically lined up at the door waiting for nutrients. Even if your first meal isn't perfect, maybe you had some white rice or grabbed something a little too processed because you were absolutely starving, your body handles it reasonably well. The glucose gets cleared, the nutrients get absorbed, and you think, okay, that went fine. And for that meal, it probably did. So you give yourself a little pat on the back. Good job breaking the fast. Mission accomplished. But here's where things get sneaky. That first meal planted seeds. And a few hours later, those seeds are going to grow into something you weren't expecting. This is what researchers sometimes call the second meal effect. What you eat first doesn't just affect you right now, it shapes how your body responds to whatever you eat next. It's like your metabolism has a memory. The first meal essentially writes the instructions for how the second meal gets handled. And depending on what you ate, those instructions can either set you up beautifully or quietly create chaos. Let's say your first meal after fasting was a big bowl of refined carbs. Maybe some cereal, a bagel, or even a fruit smoothie that sounds healthy but is basically sugar on express delivery. Low protein, low fiber, fast digesting. Your insulin spikes, your blood sugar rises quickly, and then, because there's not much to slow it down, it drops. A few hours later, something interesting happens. Your hunger signals go haywire. Your cravings for more carbs, more sugar, more of everything start knocking loud. By the time your second meal rolls around, your blood sugar is already unstable, your appetite hormones are shouting, and your body is primed to overcorrect. That second meal hits differently. Bigger portions feel necessary. Energy crashes feel inevitable. And you wonder why you felt so great during the fast but so sluggish now. Now contrast that with a different scenario. Same fast, same person, but this time the first meal has some actual structure to it. Good quality protein. Eggs, chicken, Greek yogurt, whatever you like. Some fiber from vegetables or legumes. Whole foods that take time to break down. This meal doesn't just feed you, it literally communicates with your gut bacteria, slows glucose absorption, and keeps insulin rising at a pace your body can actually manage. A few hours pass. You're still feeling steady. Then your second meal comes around, and here's the kicker. Your body handles it better. Your insulin response is more measured. Your hunger feels reasonable rather than desperate. Your energy holds. That's the second meal effect working in your favor instead of against you. The first meal essentially primes the pump. It sets the hormonal tone, calibrates your hunger signals, and influences how sensitive your cells will be to insulin for the next several hours. A well-built first meal is basically handing your body a clean, organized playbook before the second meal even begins. A poorly built one? That's like sending your metabolism into the second meal completely unprepared, running on fumes and bad signals. So when people think about breaking a fast, they usually ask, what should I eat first? And that's not a wrong question. But the more powerful question is, what is this first meal setting up? Because your body doesn't evaluate meals in isolation. It reads them as a sequence. And the sequence matters more than any single bite. The first meal flips the switch. But the second meal? That's where you actually feel what got switched. So now that you know the first meal is basically writing the playbook, let's talk about actually winning the game. Because here's where it gets real. The second meal is where blood sugar stability, appetite control, and that clean, sustained focus you're chasing are either won or lost. Not during the fast. Not at the first bite. Right here at meal number 2. Think of it this way. Your body just ran a relay race. The first meal grabbed the baton and sprinted its leg. Now it's handing off to the second meal. And if the second meal fumbles, the whole race falls apart. Sluggishness, cravings, energy crashes, mental fog, that's what a fumbled handoff looks like. But if the second meal catches that baton cleanly and runs it right, you feel exactly what you were hoping to feel when you started fasting in the first place. So what does running it right actually look like? There's a structure here, and it's not complicated. Anchor the second meal with protein. Again. Yes, again. Your body is still managing hunger hormones and blood sugar rhythm at this point, and protein is the most powerful tool you have for keeping both in check. Chicken, fish, eggs, legumes, cottage cheese. Pick your player. Then layer in fiber. Vegetables, beans, lentils, something with actual texture and substance that slows digestion down and keeps your gut bacteria doing their job. After that, you want slow-digesting carbs if you're including carbs at all. Think sweet potato, quinoa, brown rice, oats. Not because carbs are the enemy, but because the type of carb you choose here determines whether your blood sugar glides or spikes, and then healthy fats, avocado, olive oil, nuts, to round it out and extend that feeling of fullness well past the meal itself. That combination isn't magic. It's just your metabolism working the way it's supposed to when you give it the right materials. Now let's get practical, because different fasting routines need different second meal setups. If you're doing time-restricted eating, say, an eating window from noon to 8, your first meal might be around noon, and your second around 4 or 5. That second meal is doing serious heavy lifting because it needs to carry you through the rest of your window without triggering a late-night hunger spiral. Load it up, a salmon bowl with roasted vegetables and quinoa. A big stir-fry over brown rice with plenty of protein and some healthy fat mixed in. Something that actually feels like a meal, not a snack cosplaying as dinner. If you're a breakfast skipper and you break your fast around lunch, your second meal is probably dinner. Same principle applies. Don't let dinner become a free-for-all just because you held off all day. A well-structured dinner with protein, fiber, and slow carbs is the whole ball game at that point. Timing matters too. The second meal shouldn't come so quickly after the first that your body hasn't had time to actually process and signal. Give yourself at least 3 to 4 hours between meals. And on the flip side, don't push so long that you arrive at the second meal absolutely ravenous, because that's when portions get out of hand, and you end up eating half the kitchen in 15 minutes. Which brings us to the mistakes, because people make them constantly, and they usually don't realize it. The biggest one, treating the second meal like a reward. I fasted, I was disciplined, now I earned this. And suddenly the second meal is a pile of ultra-processed carbs, oversized portions, and zero nutritional structure. That's not breaking even. That's undoing everything the fast built for you. The second one is doubling up on fast-digesting carbs when the first meal already had too many. Remember, your metabolism has that memory. You can't out-discipline a bad sequence. And then there's eating too little at the first meal, thinking smaller is always better, and arriving at the second meal so depleted that your hunger hormones are running the show instead of you. Here's the simple rule you can actually remember. Match the first meal's structure with your second meal's substance. If the first meal was lean and light, the second meal picks up the weight. If the first meal had solid protein and fiber, the second meal maintains it. Think of them as partners, not competitors. One primes, the other performs. And here's your real takeaway, the one worth carrying out of this video. Stop judging your fasting routine by how you feel after the first meal. That's the easy part. The first meal gets a cheat code because your cells are insulin sensitive and forgiving. The true test is how you feel after the second meal. Energized or sluggish? Satisfied or still searching? Clear-headed or foggy? That's your actual report card. That's your body telling you whether the whole sequence worked. So next time you break a fast, eat the first meal with intention, but build the second meal like it matters, because it does, probably more than anything else you'll eat all day.